hematidrosis, in which many believe Jesus was suffering, which is under extreme stress and pressure. There are accounts of very few people having this, but you literally sweat blood. This is a true medical, scientific thing.
Welcome to the Bible in 1 Year podcast, brought to you by two Brits and aBible.
Today is day 306, covering Luke 21 and 22.
I figured rather than try and butcher an accent again or get it wrong, I'd just try and remember what my own accent sounds like for a little while.
Good call.
Smashing. Beginning of 21, it's the same thing we've chatted about several times. The widow's offering, putting the 2 small coppers in is more important than putting in the bags of money, because it's what that represents. And for me, this time reading through it, just a subtle tiny thing, this just jumps out as being, put your trust in God for your wealth above anything else.
Right.
Because he will provide.
That's good, man. Honestly, it's a little point, but it's a very important one, because every time you tithe, you're basically saying, I want you to do something with this that I lack the ability to do myself. And it's so easy to be the other way around, right? And be like, well, I'll just keep this money and then I'll put it together and I'll invest it better and whatever, right? And that's just not realistic. If you give it to God, it's going to do a lot more than if you do anything with it. It's actually a really good point. Okay, so then Luke 21, verse 9, when you hear of wars and uprisings, do not be frightened. These things must happen first, but the end will not come right away. So when things get bad, and as things have got bad in our lifetimes, for example, and we look to a future that will have wars and deaths and struggles and stuff, it's easy to start to worry, think about, it's the end of the world, or it's this or it's that, right? But just as it says here, do not be frightened. Jesus said all of this not would happen, but must happen first, right? Yeah. So just understand that, and just kind of like, when you give money to God, you're trusting that God will do more with the money. Just put your trust with your life to God, because God will do more with your life than you will as well. So,
And exactly on that point, in verse 18, it's saying not a hair on your head will perish. Then verse 19 says, stand firm and you will win life. Cool. I like the idea of winning at life.
Yeah.
Stand firm. Awesome. That's what comes first.
Yeah. Love that, dude. That's so cool. Okay, so then Luke 21, verse 28, just quickly, when these things begin to take place, lift up your heads, because redemption is drawing near as well. Okay, so it's hard to be happy as we watch the world burn, but ultimately our redemption is coming when that happens, because we're under the wings of Jesus. So that also gives us a way to stand firm. To your point. Cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. I just reading through this again in verse 21:37, each day Jesus was teaching at the temple, and each evening he went out to spend the night on the hill called the Mount of Olives. All the people came early in the morning to hear him at the temple. And I was like, that seems like a random thing to throw in there. Is there any significance with the Mount of Olives? And I just Googled it quickly earlier, and essentially there's not a huge significance to it, but I like it because it says, and literally just when you Google significance Mount of Olives, it's the first thing that throws up. So I haven't fact checked it, sorry. Mount of Olives, so named for the olive groves that once dotted its slopes, is East Jerusalem's most prominent point, towering over 800 meters above sea level. This holy site is associated with Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, and has been used as a place of prayer since and burial since the days of the first temple. So it goes back to, this is where the presence of God was initially put, really. The first temple is what I read that as. Again, I haven't fact checked it to know that, but that's why he went there, because that's where the presence of God in the Old Testament was said to have been placed. The temple, the Ark of the Covenant, etc., I think.
No, that's really cool, man. And there's so many things you can look into with the significance of the Mount of Olives beyond that. But what you've said there is a really good point. And for me, it's also just thinking about how cool it would be to go to some of these places, because they are real places that you could go and visit right now, if you wanted to. So that's really cool. Okay, so then this is more of a question potentially. So Luke 22, verse 3. In Luke's account, it says that Satan entered Judas Iscariot. And then obviously that then gives a more of a reason why Judas would betray Jesus, right? And that is a very big deal, because it either means that Judas perhaps was not fully responsible for his downfall, if Satan truly entered him and Satan was controlling him, or more likely it is that that Judas never accepted Jesus truly into his heart. And if you have accepted Jesus into your heart, then Satan can't fully enter you. Demons can still get a foothold and can still mess with you, and you need to take that seriously.
Yeah.
But it suggests that he never accepted Jesus, Holy Spirit and stuff, and therefore demons could enter and control him. So yeah, it's not that idea of Satan entering Judas is only in Luke's account, I believe.
Interesting.
So.
Yeah, like you said, more of a question above our pay grades. The thing that comes to mind is, firstly, way back in Genesis, the whole sin was always crouching at your door. So
yeah.
like it could always be there ready to pounce, but then there's also the resist the devil and he will flee from you. So
right.
What has Judas been doing in his life that hasn't been resisting the devil, but giving those little sort of, whether it was when was it Mary Magdalene that broke the perfume and he's like, oh, that's worth more than, and he was offended by that, focusing more on the money, like those kind of things just starting to eat away at him.
Yeah. And Judas was the one that was responsible for managing the money. So there you go.
Interesting.
Cool. Yeah.
My next point. So literally, Bible in 1 year, day 1, you mentioned that men and women have the same number of ribs. And I was like, today years old when I found that out. I don't think I was today years old when I found this out, but it still shocked me. The Last Supper was the Passover meal.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, oh, wow. So I always have seen them as like two separate things. Like they had the Last Supper because he was like, all right, guys, I'm going to go die. Let's have a nice dinner together.
Yeah.
Like, I'm moving to Uganda. Let's have a goodbye party kind of deal. Actually, it was just the Passover meal, but these two humongously, historically important meals, feasts, were actually brought together to be the one thing. So Passover no longer is sort of needed as Passover because we celebrate it as the Last Supper. But either way, it's my little mind.
I love that. And that's a reason why reading the Bible is so important, because details like that, like there's only so much that a pastor can do from the pulpit in 45 minutes every week, right? And there can be these sorts of details that are so significant. But yeah, absolutely, it was Passover Seder, and it's really
there's only so much that we can take in through reading it through once. Just because you read it through once, keep reading through it. There's a heck of a lot more in there that you will have missed.
100%. That's cool, man. So Luke 22:22, kind of had to include it because it's 22:22. The Son of Man will go as it has been decreed, but woe to the man who betrays him. So obviously Jesus is talking to Judas, but in a weird way, he's also talking to Satan, assuming that Satan really did enter Judas at this moment. So that's just like a mind-blowing moment for me. Like, Jesus, perhaps if Luke's account is to be trusted, which obviously I would trust it, then he's actually talking to Judas right now, to Satan right now as well.
Yeah.
Which is pretty incredible.
Yeah, that's cool. I definitely want to squeeze this point in.
Go for it.
If you want to do yours first, crack on.
Nah, go for it, mate.
All right, so I quite like this because I'd missed this before. 22:35, Jesus asked them, when I sent you without a purse, bag, or sandals, did you lack anything? No. But now if you have a purse, take it. Also, if you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one. So it's like, interesting. He's now telling them to buy a sword.
Yeah.
Weird. But then fast forward down here to when Jesus is being arrested, and it says, Lord, should we strike with our swords? And then one of them cut off the priest's ear, and Jesus healed it back on again. But it's like Jesus says, go and buy a sword. The next time there's some kind of hardship, the disciples are like, this is why he said to buy a sword. Van Gogh this bloke. And then Jesus is like, no more of this. Touched the man's ear and healed him. Loves it.
I think that, the reason for that is, I think he was talking for like once he's gone in that period, right? So I noted that as well. Quick one, like medical one, which is unusual here on this program. But when Jesus prays in the garden, his sweat was like drops of blood falling to the ground. And a lot of people think that that's metaphorical. No, there is a medical condition, hematidrosis, in which many believe Jesus was suffering, which is under extreme stress and pressure. There are accounts of very few people having this, but you literally sweat blood. This is a true medical, scientific thing. And that is the stress that Jesus was under. He was literally sweating blood. That is not metaphorical. So there you go.
And on that bombshell, it's time to end. Good night.